guys, how's it going? So today Erin and I are working on putting in a little brick pathway in front of our gazebo. So first thing you'll notice is I do have this area planted, which I'm going to give you a tour of that later when it's not so windy. But this is where the pathway is going. You can see I kind of laid my edges out just to get an idea. But the wood landing is still there, so we're going to be pulling that up. And the beauty of this is that we're not going to have to do much soil removal. Just because there was already a pathway here, it's already pretty compacted, and we're doing this all by hand today. No power tools. I do have gravel that I picked up at Home Depot yesterday, as well as paver sand and some polymer jointing sand for the bricks. And then these are all the hand tools we're going to be using. So Fiskars, heavy duty tamper, which I've already used a couple times. That works really well. Then we've got a broom, a couple shovels, and a metal tooth rake. And of course the bricks, which are still behind the barn. So let's get started. Okay, so first we dug out the area to try to make it as level as possible. We dug the front by the grass deeper so the bricks wouldn't stand too tall, and so any water that might fall from the gazebo roof would drain toward the grass instead of the building. It already has a natural slope, so it was pretty easy to do. We also wanted to make sure that the path level was higher on the gazebo side so the step into the gazebo wasn't too high. Then we worked on raking and smoothing it out and testing a few bricks to see how we liked the level. When we sat the bricks there, we realized that we needed it lower, so we raked and removed more soil away before smoothing it out again. Once we liked the way it looked, we got the tamper out to compact the soil, and it did a pretty good job. We've rented an actual compactor before, but it seemed a little bit unnecessary and overkill for a project this size that will be getting only very light foot traffic. After the soil was compacted, we poured about 3 bags of crushed gravel over the area and raked it out as evenly and smoothly as possible. Then got the tamper back out and compacted the area again. I don't think it did a whole lot, but it did help settle the gravel down a little bit. Next, I put down 2 boards that I was going to use for screeding the next layer, which I'll explain in a minute. I opened a bag of sand and poured it over the crushed gravel, and here's where I started to screed, which is basically just pulling a straight board over the top of the sand using the boards on the side as a guide for level. The boards on the side ended up being a horrible idea because they were a bit warped. The only reason I used them was because that's what I had on hand. You really want to use PVC pipe, and I'd recommend about 1/2 inch pipe. So a quick trip to Home Depot later, we got some pipe, and this made screeding so much easier. I generally wet down the sand before I lay any bricks, and this helps firm it up a little bit. I placed 1 brick in the center up next to the concrete floor of the gazebo and used that as my starting place. I like the running bond pattern, so I stagger the bricks and leave the half-sized brick areas empty until the very end. What's amazing and something to watch out for is that if you get off even a tiny little bit, your pathway can take a turn. Here it is slightly curving to the left, but at this point we didn't 100% realize that, and it also looked like our path wasn't quite wide enough, so we started to dig out more dirt from the left side. So anyway, fairly easy fix. We dug out more of that area and laid a bit more gravel. As I continued to lay brick though, you can see that the trajectory is definitely going left. So I pulled up all the bricks to start over, and this was definitely frustrating because it didn't seem to make sense how we were getting off. I assumed that if the bricks were butted up to the concrete and the concrete was straight, that would make the path straight. Not true. You really either need to run string as a guide or have someone with a really good eye watch each brick being laid down to make sure your path is heading in the right direction. This time Erin watched in the gazebo and made sure they were all straight. Again, running a string on each side and following it is the preferred method, but sometimes I'm just too impulsive and just want to get the project done. Perhaps you can relate? Hiccups aside, the pathway went in pretty quick. When we got to the end, we needed to start cutting bricks in half to fill in the beginning and end gaps. I used an angle grinder to do this, and I know some people use a chop saw with the proper blade, which would probably be easier, but I don't have that blade, and the angle grinder worked just fine, and the bricks ended up fitting perfectly. Now that the pathway construction was essentially done, I wanted to make sure that it wouldn't slough on any of the sides, so we installed the path barriers on either side and the front, cutting pieces to fit as needed, and the pins are really easy to install. You just need a hammer or mallet. We were short just 1 tiny piece of path barrier, so Erin had to make another trip to Home Depot. While he was gone, I used the opportunity to spread some mulch in the surrounding area. And the last step was to sweep some paver joint sand into all the cracks. I like to do this really slow, making sure that every opening is completely filled. Once I felt like it was good, I carefully swept off all the excess sand and then used our blower to blow any additional sand off the top of the bricks. You want them to be completely clean on top because once you wet everything down, that sand binds like concrete. So the bricks were clean. I grabbed the hose and wet down the whole area a few times to finish it off. There were some suds that showed up when I hosed the area down, which I don't remember happening in other projects like this. I'm not sure what that was about, but they ended up going away. So there's the finished product, and I honestly could not be happier with how it turned out. Let me back up a little bit. Isn't that just perfect? It's the right scale, and it's not made out of 3 different materials like the previous walkway. And I do love the color of these bricks. They're kind of a muted color. They're not in your face like brick red or terracotta. I like that they just kind of fade, and eventually they'll blend a little bit more once the plants, you know, kind of grow in and go over the sides of the sidewalk so it doesn't look like abrupt edges. And then I did plant 2 gem box ilex, which are the 2 evergreen small shrubs, which I'm going to leave in a tight sphere form. And they'll grow 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and they'll kind of come over the edge. And so they'll kind of soften the end of this walkway. We did end up kind of tearing up the grass right here, and you can see this line right here. I went and cut grass out of a different area of our yard and replaced this. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, this stuff will blend and it'll start looking like it's all one lawn. I have toyed with the idea of redoing kind of all the flower bed lines around the gazebo, because as you could probably see, one side is way bigger than the other side, and that's how it was when we moved in, which is totally fine for now. I've just filled them up with plants, which I'll give you a tour of a little bit later. But eventually we're going to make our way all the way around the gazebo and try to replace some of the existing pathways with something a little bit more consistent. This project only took Aaron and I a few hours. We started at noon and we were done before 5, and that included 2 trips to Home Depot. So I think that that's pretty good. Now we do have a little experience. I laid a paver I laid a paver patio last spring at my brother and sister-in-law's house. So I kind of had a little bit of an idea how to do it. We also added up how much it cost in terms of supplies. This does not include tools or our time, but it was $152. So that was like all the gravel, the sand, the bricks, the edgers, the pins, the perma sand, and the glaze. $152. Now we did get the bricks on sale. So these are the same bricks as the ones we used on the west side. We paid 58 cents per brick for those, for that huge project. And then Aaron noticed like a month after they went on sale for less than half. We would have saved so much money had we just waited to buy the bricks. But we didn't know that they ran sales on stuff like that. So anyway, he ordered a ton of extra bricks that we are storing behind our barn so we can pull them out for projects like this. So we paid 25 cents per brick for these. So even if you were to pay full price for the bricks, this pathway right here would have still been under $200, and we still have extra paver sand, extra perma sand, extra gravel. We have 2 extra bags of gravel. We have extra pins, and we have extra of everything. So essentially we could almost duplicate this path again for what we paid. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it maybe inspired you to go try to do something like this, because honestly, other than just elbow grease, it is not very hard to do. And once you do it once, like I think the first time when I did the paver patio last year, I was super intimidated, and I like kind of lost sleep over that project because it wasn't at my own house. I should have done something like that at my own house first, so that if it didn't turn out, then I didn't have to worry about it. But I had to make sure that it turned out because it was for somebody else. But once you do it one time and you feel like you get some experience, it gets so much easier and you get much more brave. So anyway, it was something we weren't planning on doing this year, but I got ahead of myself and ripped up everything that was there because I was just sick of it. I was sick of the way it looked. And then I kind of found myself saying, well, now we're just going to be walking over mud for the whole season, so we got to fix it. So anyway, that's what led to the pathway. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing it, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.